Welcome to Weekend Wisdom by Creating a Family. Creating a Family is a national support and training nonprofit for foster, adoptive, and kinship families. Weekend Wisdom is our opportunity to answer your questions, so we need you to send us your questions, and we will answer them on an upcoming Weekend Wisdom. You can send your questions to info@creatingafamily.org. This week's question is about when to tell your child they have birth siblings. Here's the question. I have been listening to your podcast and supporting your mission for several years. We adopted our daughter at birth through an open adoption. We began caring for her on day 2. She is now 9 years old. She knows she is adopted and has seen photos of her birth parents. Her parents have problems with addiction and the law. We only tell her they were not able to care for you. She has not yet asked questions about her biological parents, but she does opine about being an only child. We have not yet told her about her full biological brother, the full brother who died from neglect as an infant, her 5 half-sisters, her biological grandmother, or that her biological father died a few years ago having, quote, fallen off of a bridge. She will obviously know everything eventually, but we are concerned about when and how to tell her. Well, first of all, thank you so much for your support. It's truly appreciated. You ask a great question, and honestly, it's one that a lot of adoptive parents face. I'll list some resources that may be helpful at the end. Most parents, understandably, don't want to burden their kids with hard information when they're children. We want our children to be children and innocent for as long as possible. Still, adolescence is not the ideal time to start sharing because there's already so much going on developmentally during that time. Youth are forming their identity, and honestly, that's the worst time to introduce complex information such as this. So the general rule is to start sharing the framework for their full story when they are young, and then gradually add more details with every telling. Ideally, you want them to know what you know by around the age of 11 or 12. That is earlier than most parents think to do it. So I'm glad you're asking now when she's 9. That gives you a couple of years. You could start now by adding more details to what you've already told her. You said they weren't able to care for her. Her birth parents weren't able to care for her. But you could add more information now. For example, you could say, your birth parents used drugs, which made it really hard for them to care for a baby or for a child. They didn't do a good job taking care of another baby that they had. Also, let her know that you are open to all questions, and then answer her questions honestly with the knowledge that within a couple of years, you're going to want to share everything that you know. So let her know that you're open to the questions, and then make sure that you're answering them. In my experience, it's very common for kids to be more curious and interested in siblings rather than their birth parents. I'm not sure why. I wonder if it feels safer to them to be curious about siblings rather than parents. It may be the whole divided loyalty thing where if they're curious about parents, they're afraid they're going to hurt your feelings, but siblings perhaps not. Anyway, you can expect that when she knows that she has siblings, she will want more information about them. So here are some questions to think about. How open is your adoption? And can you get more information about her siblings? Is it possible for her to meet any of her siblings if she asks? And be prepared that, in my experience, she will likely seek out her siblings when she is older and has access to social media. Is there someone in the birth family available who can answer some of her questions? And if so, now might be a good time to start developing that relationship. And just as an aside, I think this is a great idea to have her see an adoption competent therapist during this time to give her a safe and educated space to explore this new information. Now, we have some great resources on how to find a therapist on our website. You can go hover over the word adoption, then click on topics, and then click on post-adoption, and then click on adoption therapy. Now, I promised you a couple of extra resources. One is an online course talking about the difficult parts of your child's history. So that's available. Another article is building the framework for adopted and foster children to process the hard parts of their stories. And another one is an older podcast titled Talking About the Difficult Parts of Your Adopted Child's History. So hopefully some of that information will help you, and thank you for sending in your questions. Before everyone leaves, I want to remind you that Creating a Family has a newsletter. We would love for you to subscribe. It's monthly, it's free. You can subscribe at creatingafamily.org/newsletter. Thanks for listening for this week's Weekend Wisdom. If you liked it, please tell a friend to subscribe to the creatingafamily.org podcast. And I will see you next week.